Hi, welcome to this podcast on Metacommunication, an old solution with a new twist. I'm Dr. Pam Brewer of Mercer University. Metacommunication is communicating about communication, and it is one of the most important tools in a toolbox for leading and participating in virtual teams, that is, remote teams online. I say that it's an old solution with a new twist because metacommunication has always been around. It is communicating about communication. But what my research has indicated is that when we're in the workplace, we're so busy that we don't take the time for structured metacommunication. Hence the reason that the new twist is taking control of this tool so that it can help build your credibility and your productivity in your virtual teams. So as y'all know, technology is great when it's working, and teams are great when they're working. But in both cases, we do encounter a lot of problems, and our goal with technology and with team projects are to decrease the problems as much as we can so that we can focus on getting the job done. And so in my discussion today of metacommunication, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, give you another tool that will help you reduce problems and increase productivity. So when something isn't working in your team, you've got to figure out not only what that is, but you've also got to figure out how to preempt it the next time. I'm suggesting that by communicating about communication, we can help our teams perform more effectively, and the data shows that that is true. This particular approach can help a great deal. Strategic metacommunication can make your teams work more smoothly and make them easier to assess. It's a great tool for helping you to find out if the team is working as it is. If perhaps you're a leader of a team, or if you're a manager and you're outside the team. The advantages of metacommunication are many, and I've listed several here. When you communicate about communication, you set down a list of expectations that your team has agreed on. That is, when I talk to you about what I expect and you talk to me about what you expect, then we can reach consensus on what we want the expectations for the team to be. And normally those expectations are some type of compromise, which can work very well. The result of putting down or recording those expectations is that then you've got a map for your team so that they can focus on the project, on the goals of the project. Other benefits of metacommunication to establish communication expectations are that you increase trust by the members of the team, which is important to knowledge transfer. Again, research supports this. And trust is a little more difficult to build in virtual teams than it is in face-to-face teams. Using metacommunication to establish your expectations decreases anxiety because members of the team don't have to wonder whether they're doing what's expected. It helps to bridge gaps between people because our expectations are different. And particularly bridge gaps internationally when you've got teams who may be highly varied in their approach to business. It allows your teams to preempt some problems before they occur, and overall gives you and your team more sense of a control of team performance. So the return on investment of metacommunication in remote teams is extraordinary. But here's the thing, the new twist, if you will. Metacommunication is there, and it's always been there. But you don't have control of it in order to help it benefit your teams unless you do it deliberately. So what I'm suggesting with this particular slide is, with your team, you've got to name metacommunication. In other words, you tell your teams, this is metacommunication, and this is what it is, and this is what it does. And then, after you've named it and you've defined it, you use it systematically to the benefit of your team. And let me tell you a little bit more about that. So when you want to implement metacommunication in your teams, you can use this approach. First of all, you can use any teaming approach you want to for your team. A very common one is Tuckman's forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And you can look Tuckman's technique up very easily online. As part of the forming and storming and norming stage, so those pre-stages of the team, you're going to use metacommunication. You're going to define it for your team. That is, it's communicating about communication. And then you're going to use it to discuss your communication expectations for your team. That is, you're going to use it to brainstorm and figure out what the norms, the normal communication is or for your team. In addition, you would be establishing mediations for those expectations. So in other words, if we've decided that one expectation of our team is that we are going to hear back from our teammates within 12 hours of sending out any message, then you also need to decide as part of the mediation what you're going to do if your team members don't get back to you within 12 hours. This mediation is not so much a punishment as it is planning in advance how you're going to respond to the situation. And then there are no unknowns for your team. People can feel free to, after 12 hours, get back to someone and say, I need your response, because that is what the team has said that they expect. Once you've established these expectations with your team, you record those and they become part of your team charter, a working document that guides the work of your team. And it's not client-facing. This is just for use of your team. And at any point where your team needs to update some of the expectations, you can do so. It just takes the agreement of the entire team. So a few examples of what you might talk about during metacommunication, and there's no rule to this, but some things you will definitely want to talk about will be, well, what are our goals? Do we agree on those goals? What are our personal goals related to the project? Do we understand what each of us hopes to gain from our work on this project? What is a reasonable response time? How often are we going to meet? What is a draft? If we're going to share drafts of the project evolution, what does that draft look like? Which ICTs will we use? And ICT stands for Information Communication Technology. It's the current term for any tool any technology that helps you to communicate back and forth with your teammates. So that can include web conferencing systems, texting, phone calling, any way that you support back and forth communication. But you may find that some of your members strongly prefer a particular technology. Another biggie, and it's the last one I've listed here, although there are many other things that you should metacommunicate about, is what's the best approach for delivering criticism. Criticism is difficult to deliver for most people, and it becomes a little more complex when you are working in remote locations from one another. So how do you want to handle criticism? In other words, let's talk about how we would communicate during a problem situation before there's ever a problem, before any members of our team feel like they might be being punished or have done something wrong. So it's a very constructive way to conduct teaming, and it has great results. So metacommunication should result in a list of communication expectations and mediation measures. And I've got just a couple of examples here. Now, I've pulled these from some freshman college students. So they're not terribly sophisticated, but they give you an idea. This team said they want to limit negative impacts by being honest and addressing everything directly when it comes up. They want to use workshop time efficiently, trying not to get off topic. They want to always reach consensus on a quality assessment. They want to use GroupMe, Gmail, and Google Docs. They require a few hours as a reasonable response time. And they're going to decide on how often to meet once they get a look at productivity during the first meeting. So those are very simple, very basic, but it gives you a flavor for what some people might put in a list of norms, and that is of communication expectations. And then these are a few mediation measures that freshmen decided on. So on the second occurrence of a problem, they discuss it with the team, and on a third occurrence, they discuss it without that team member and then notify me, because in this case, we're talking about a college classroom. This really works no differently in the workplace. You try to make these mediation measures constructive and very low level at the beginning. In other words, we don't want to escalate problems quickly. We want to solve them quickly. And then, when not given a choice, you may choose to escalate. So revisit those norms often and change them as needed. Include those communication norms, or I also have called them communication expectations, as part of a team charter that drives your team. It's your working team plan. I loved this. I had well, it wasn't a freshman. I had one of my juniors or seniors come in after I had introduced this in an advanced class and say exactly this. I sure wish I'd known about this from my freshman year because of the challenges for working in student teams. So thank you for joining me for Metacommunication, an old solution with a new twist. Again, I'm Pam Brewer, and I've enjoyed talking with you today. Thank you.